Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:06, and good news, everybody. We have a new episode of Michelle Obama's podcast. And yes, she picked up right where she left off. We'll tell that to you coming up. Also at 7:35, Representative Andy Harris, 8:05, Katie McFarland, 8:35, Sean Spicer. It's Larry O'Connor alongside fellow Marylander Bethany Mandel. Good morning, Bethany. Thanks for being here.
Good morning. Are we going to hear more about how Michelle hates her husband?
Your podcast is so much better than Michelle Obama's podcast. Will you please tell us about it?
Thank you. It's called The Mom Wars. It's also a Substack, and we have a new episode out, I think like 2 days ago, about lots of things. One of them was that I ran into Usha Vance at the Air and Space Museum a week and a half ago.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Just
really
ran
fun.
into the second lady of the United States.
I want to tell you that story because it was actually amazing, but not right now.
Not right now, because we have a guest waiting, and he's running for office, Commonwealth-wide in Virginia. He's the Republican nominee for lieutenant governor. He's John Reid. Good morning, Mr. Reid. Good to talk with you.
Hey, good morning. I'm glad to talk to you. I'm in Richmond today, but I was up your way yesterday, and gosh, I'm trying to think of where I'm going to be by the end of the night. But it was
that's the thing.
Driving all over.
Is it different to campaign in Northern Virginia up here in sort of the swamp suburbs versus in, I guess, more conservative-friendly parts of the state? It really is quite a geographic and ideological landscape to maneuver when you're running statewide in Virginia.
Yes, I will say that I have I think there are Marines who are at Paris Island who are treated nicer than I have been sometimes in Alexandria.
Really? Tell us what happened. What did they do?
When I was doing the petitions just to get on the ballot, boy, there's some built-in hostility from some folks as soon as you say you're Republican. The one thing I got going for me as a former talk show host is I'm pretty good at talking people off the ledge. Mm-hmm. So I've had pretty good results when people start out with a little bit of hostility, asking, well, why? Why do you feel that way? Well, and then you give them 2 or 3 minutes to complain, and you can actually have a conversation.
So, John, apparently you're talking the talk and walking the walk, because I saw that you were out on July 4th shaking hands in Fairfax, and as you were, going through the crowd, you met up with a woman named Abigail Spanberger. Did you get some hostility from her? Did you convince her to vote for you?
Yeah, I don't know that I've gotten her to cast a vote for me. But, one of the things that I grew up in Virginia, and people have always had political conflicts. There's always been the Republican and the Democrat chasm between policy positions. But there hasn't been the open hostility that has existed in the last few years. And I would really like to be kind of the reasonable person, if it's at all possible, to restore some decency at the Capitol in Richmond. I don't know about, when I worked in the Senate in D.C., it seemed like things were pretty far gone, but it doesn't have to be that way in Richmond. Abigail Spanberger was super nice. We're not going to agree on everything, but she was super nice. And I had stopped. I didn't even see that she was there. I had just stopped to say, hey, Democrats, it's July 4th. Let's have a day of unity. And the sea parted of the volunteers, and there Abigail was, and we had a very nice 2 or 3 minute conversation at most, all pleasantries, but that's where this starts, is just basic decency with people who disagree, and I appreciated it.
So I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate on you for a second.
Okay.
So yesterday we had a Supreme Court decision that allowed Trump to move forward with axing lots of federal jobs. It's interesting because this area has such a high concentration, obviously, for obvious reasons. It's interesting running as a Republican in these times. So what are you telling people when they come up to you and say, it's because of Trump that I don't have a job anymore? Like, that's a pretty hard conversation to have, and how are you navigating that?
Oh, it is very hard. And the first thing I start with is empathy about that situation. I lost my job when I was living in D.C. twice and had to cash out my 401k. I'm still recovering from that, so I make it very clear. I'm not laughing at you. I am not one of the people with the chainsaws, going, let's cut this thing down, because that affects real people in Northern Virginia, and there are a lot of people down in Tidewater who feel the same way. Like, what's going to happen? There's a palpable frustration, anxiety, and hurt. And, we make fun sometimes of federal workers, or I don't, but a lot of people make fun of federal workers. There are a lot of people who really take their job seriously and work very hard, and the idea that they're going to lose their job is upsetting. So the other thing that I talk about after I share that I've been through this experience is in Virginia, we have a robust economic ecosystem, and it's because we're a right-to-work state. It's not just because of the proximity to the capital. Businesses want to come here because we're a great place to locate. And if we lose the right to work and force everybody into a union, which is what the Democrats are pledging to do, that economic ecosystem where you can find another job within a couple of months of losing your main job, that ain't going to exist any longer. And it gives me an opportunity to talk about why Republicans have set up backstops that can help people when they find themselves in this situation. And there are a lot of people in the private sector who have been through this multiple times, and you can survive, but you got to have a good economic policy.
Well, and the good news, John Reid, is that, most Virginians have been through this, those who haven't worked for the government. I mean, listen, I have sympathy for anyone who loses their job, but we're burying our head in the sand if we think that this is unique suddenly to people who work in Northern Virginia for the federal government, because the rest of us who work for private industry, we've been through this. This is pretty normal, actually. Very rarely do you get a job and stay in it for 40 years these days. That's unique to the federal government. And I think that's part of the problem. I understand. I have empathy for people on a human level, certainly. But let's get real. When Abigail Spanberger says, or for that matter, Ghazala Hashmi says that this is outrageous and unacceptable, it's like, where have they been? Have they not seen what happens to normal Virginians in the private sector?
Yeah, we're $37 trillion in debt. So you got to recognize that some changes are coming to the federal government if we want to continue to exist for another couple of decades.
Yeah.
And they don't usually have a lot to say, like, down in Emporia, where part of my family is from, at Southside. They just lost 450 jobs in woodworking. I mean, they're not going to be easily replaced, and they don't have the same economic ecosystem as Northern Virginia. So
imagine wanting to be governor or lieutenant governor of Virginia and say, yeah, I'm going to build a great economy as long as the federal government pays for all the jobs. It's like, how about you actually do something for the economy? We're speaking with John Reid. He's running for lieutenant governor. Let's talk about your opponent, because I know you want to debate her. I would love to see those debates. But have you heard anything back from her? It sounds like she's more interested in debating Donald Trump than you, John Reid.
I wake up every morning and I check my email and I check her Twitter feed to see whether Ghazala Hashmi has agreed to debate me, and it's crickets, nothing. I came up with this idea of 10 debates, which allows us to do a couple of them in each region. So you're not just talking top-line stuff, you're talking local stuff that people, that are unique to Roanoke or unique to Virginia Beach or unique to Emporia and their employment situation. And I thought that made good sense. If you want to be a statewide leader, and she's been in the Senate for several years, and she's proposed some really crazy nutcase proposals, then let's talk about it. I'm not scared to do that, and just nothing. And I keep waiting for a counter proposal, nothing. So that's weird to me. I don't think voters like that. I don't think voters will accept that in 2025.
John Reid for Virginia. It's spelled R-E-I-D. JohnReidForVirginia.com is the website. John, keep us updated on the campaign, and especially if you ever hear anything from your opponent there, Ms. Hashmi, about some debates. I think the people of Virginia deserve to actually hear what their candidates stand for before they vote. It's an old-fashioned idea.
You got it.
All right, thanks for that.
It's going to be epic. Larry, Bethany, thank you.
7:15.